we're gonna be testing some
Feats.
changes regarding like anti-ganking. So
Okay.
first of all, I want to make sure that it's clear for everyone what a gank is because it might not be super obvious. It's a question I see asked really often. Like if I go browse
Yeah.
Reddit because I'm nuts, um, I go look at it and then people go, so what's a gank? What is that? Right. So a
Yeah.
gank is basically we can define it as it's a coordinated attempt by two or more players to deal a lot of unescapable damage on a single opponent, right?
Nice.
So basically, it could be like you and me tag teaming and going, I'm going to do something on Brian
Yeah.
so that he gets hit or something happens, forces a reaction. You hit him back. And then while he's still stuck in a hit stun or whatever is happening there, I can hit him back. And we keep going back and forth
Yeah.
until he's basically dead, right?
Okay.
And so we don't like Brian to be dead.
Oh,
So we're trying to do things where
oh, we like
we can
Brian.
adjust this a little bit. So it's a bit tricky.
Yeah.
And it's so I wanted to make sure that that's super clear. So then let's talk about what first what the hit stun rules are in general in For Honor to give a nice context to what's happening, right? So normally in For Honor, when you're hit, you enter what we call a first hit stun state, right? So I have Warden, I hit you,
Mhm.
you go into what's called, that's it, the hit stun state. While you are in that hit stun state, that applies to everybody, by the way, not just you, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
So while you're in that state, any damage you take from players other than me is going to
I
get
said it,
reduced
dude.
by
I said it.
25%.
Yeah.
Right? If I do combo hits like with a Rochi or with Warden or whatever, you still take the full damage from me. That's great. But from any other source, it's reduced by 25%.
Gotcha.
In addition to this, if you are hit by another source while you are in that state, you enter what we call the second hit stun state. And while you're in that second hit stun, you take 75% less damage from everyone, including me, even though I initiated the first attack.
Yeah.
And you also gain uninterruptible and can't be pinned. Right? It's a combination of defensive abilities that players call super armor. We're in a state where you're borderline invulnerable. Right? You take a lot less damage. You can't get pinned. None of these things happen. Nothing even flinches you, right? You just stand
Right.
still. Every time you get hit, there's that white flash that appears on you to kind of signify that the kind of armor is on. Uh, and what's important to know as well is that while you're in this state, and while you're in any state really,
Yeah.
damage buffs and debuffs, so damage reduction there and stuff, do not affect revenge gain. So even if you take 75% less damage, you still take full revenge for these attacks.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take an attack that deals 100 and you're in that state, you're going to take 25 damage, but you're going to gain 100 revenge,
Gotcha.
right? So that's kind of like, that's the gist of it. That's how it works. However, there's a tiny bit of an issue in that there's something that players call hit stun reset. And the problem is that attacks that pin can pin an opponent that is in first hit stun and that keeps the opponent in first hit stun. They do not go back into a second hit stun. They don't get the damage reduction in the vast majority of cases. And so that ends up creating a lot of these situations where I'm able to hit you with something. Like, let's say I'm a Warden, right? And then Brian's there because Brian's sitting there.
Hi, Brian.
So I'm hitting you with an attack, and then Brian hits you with, I don't know, like Jun's front dodge bash, right?
Yeah.
That is a move that pins. So because of this, he hits you with that move. You get pinned. You play a little special animation, but you stay in first hit stun. And on top of that, you don't gain the damage reduction. So I get another free hit on you. And then things can kind of devolve from there in a lot of crazy situations.
Gotcha.
So what we're aiming to do with this change, with this testing grounds, is fixing this so that any moves that pin now properly apply second hit stun, the damage reduction from any other source, when it hits in first hit stun. If you don't hit, if you hit in the first hit stun, if you do the normal stuff, it doesn't really change. But if you hit somebody in a situation where normally you would be put in second hit stun, the pinning moves also will put you in second hit stun. There's a couple other things that are in there that are like inconsequential, but that kind of play a little bit in this. So the important part here is we're normalizing these reactions to make sure that you are able to gain your defense. And so while you're in that second hit stun state, you gain, like I said, you gain full revenge. You take a lot less damage. You tend to be able to dodge earlier, block earlier. You can parry. You can do a lot of different things while you're in those states. So it makes it a lot easier to avoid those ganks and to defend against them.
Gotcha.
Now, the important part here is that this applies while you are in that hit stun state. But when you exit that hit stun, you are kind of vulnerable for 100 MS every single time. Because when you switch your guard to block, then that takes 100 MS, right? So if you take an attack that's in a different stance that you wouldn't be able to block or an unblockable or a bash or whatever, you still can't defend against it. So that means that there's still a little bit of a window, and after you get hit by any of these attacks that kind of cause that hit stun, where you still can't evade, and that is kind of on purpose, and we wanted to keep that in so that you can still gank. It's not full anti-gank; it can't ever happen again. It's if you want to gank people, you have to be a lot more coordinated. You have to be really precise, hit at very, very specific timings. So this gives a lot more opportunities for those ganks to fail. It's a little bit like if you're playing like a fighting game and you drop a combo. This is kind of like what ends up happening, right?
Gotcha.
It's dropping those combinations of attacks so that he got out of my gank, he got out of this or that situation. So you still do need to kind of like be able to dodge and react and do stuff, but that those ganking scenarios can still happen. They're much more difficult to do, and so we're addressing the main issue. So we want to make them a lot harder to pull off.
Gotcha.
So as we go, then we have a few heroes that this is applying to. We are also using a new tech, which is kind of cool. Because when you go into the testing grounds, you can only pick the heroes listed here. So Warden, Conqueror. I'm blanking on his great Shigoki. Yeah, that's me apparently, so that's good. Yorm,
Missing a
Hito,
couple with
Shinobi,
bashes, though.
JJ, Zanhu, Pirate, and Ocelot.
Like Shaolin should be in there.
Yeah, Brian.
And so
Orochi should be in there. Oh my gosh.
So these heroes specifically these are the only heroes we've applied this to for now. When this does go live, if it goes live, it's going to be applied to the entire cast. Don't worry about it.
It will go live.
Right now,
it will.
This is a lot of work because we have to go into every single one of their moves that pin and add data to them to make sure that it respects those rules. We wanted to make sure that we could try it out on a variety of heroes that have a variety of different things that can happen. So these are the heroes that is applying to. Warden, notably, doesn't have any moves that pin.
Right.
But we wanted to keep it because pretty much everybody has Warden. So if you want to play in the testing grounds, you can still play with Warden.
Use your baseline.
Yeah, and you can still participate in ganks, right? He has like those big unblockables and stuff, so it still kind of works. So as we go here, so here's the effective move. So Warden has no moves that are affected by this whatsoever. Great. Conqueror has their charging shield crush, which is their running attack. That one pins and unbalances, so we want to cover that base as well. See kind of like what the situation kind of ends up being with that. We have Zanhu with Palm Strike, Janjung with Dushi's Choke and Mighty Kick, like the Mighty Kick we were talking about earlier. We also have Hitokiri for Ray Kick and Ray Sweep, so the kick and the sweep and chains. Pirate with Pistol Blast and Walk the Plank. Pistol Blast specifically had like another interaction on top of it that we fixed with this, so that's great. That could cause infinites. If you didn't know, like right now, even like when Pirate launched, you could have two pirates going heavy into gunshot into heavy gunshot, heavy gunshot.
Oh yeah, it was bad.
Right. So remember that?
Yeah.
So in this instance, this is completely fixed. What we had done before, it was kind of hot fixed it to give it a lot more revenge. So to kind of disable that combo. Because if you did it too often, you would feel way too much revenge. In this case, the issue is fixed entirely, and you just cannot like chain lock somebody in that situation.
Nice.
We also have Shigoki with Demon's Embrace, Headbutt, and Dodge Headbutts, and Demon Ball. What's interesting too about Demon's Embrace here is that you can still Demon's Embrace somebody in first hit stun, and you're still gonna get the full animation. In all of these cases, if you do manage to pin somebody that's in their first hit stun, it's still going to play the special animation. It still plays all that sort of stuff. But the opponent is going to be in second hit stun the whole time. They're going to have that armor on interval and sort of stuff. So you want to refrain from hitting them because they're not going to flinch, but they're going to gain a ton of revenge. Yeah, that's great. Gotcha. For Demon's Embrace and for other moves that kind of end up like this where you grab and you really, really end up pinning your opponent, there's something a little bit different where if you hit them out, they're going to still be hit out of it, but they should be in second hit stun after they get hit out. So it kind of all evens out there. We also have Jormungandr, so quite a list on Yorm, right? Yeah. So heavy finishers, Jotun Farewell, Jotun Gift, Venomous Sting, Jotun Grudge, Hammer Slam, all cool things. So Yorm was a hero that has a lot of pinning moves.
Right.
So this is like a nice case of like a bunch of stuff that gets affected. We also have Ocelot again with Skull Smash, Ferocious Fang, Hunter Stance. And then finally, our boy Shinobi with
also
Reaper's,
a lot of
Reaper's Dance, Flip Kick, Spectral Kick, Teleport, Ghoul's Embrace, and Sickle Rain, all that sort of stuff. Nice. So what's super interesting with this is if this ends up working out well, which we're really hoping it does, we've done a lot of testing internally. It seems to have like a good impact on ganking, especially at levels where people are not like extra coordinated. What's cool is that it should let us readjust some of the like nerves that we've done in the past, right?
Yeah.
So I mentioned Pirate, for example, where her gunshot now feeds an astounding amount of revenge, while it doesn't deal a lot of damage. Because normally, if you're hitting somebody, you're feeding revenge equal to the damage the attack deals. But in some cases, we had to crank it up to like 30 or like even higher in the case of Sickle Rain, because it created like those really really crazy easy ganks. So if this ends up working out, we can go back and retroactively look at some of these things to go, well, this does not need that much revenge gain because it's not used as effectively.
Such a
in ganks
good
anymore.
change.
So there's a lot of this that lets us open up balancing and lets us go on a case by case basis and go, well, does this actually need to feed more revenge or not? And we get to the point where we were before. So you're not disadvantaged, like not disadvantaged, but you don't have that feeling of I don't want to throw this attack because I feed way too much revenge. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. There's like combo attacks that could come back because of this, because they don't really reset hit stun anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to look forward to with this. So I hope players play quite a bit. I know it's complicated.
Yeah.
I know I've been talking for God knows how long now, but it's a complex thing.
Yeah.
It's a super interesting task that we've been trying to do to get ganking into a situation where it's very 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 skill based. And not just, hey, I'm just going to mash stuff and it's going to land, it's going to feel good. So we really wanted to push towards this to get into a good situation where it's skillful. You have ways to escape ganks when they're not done perfectly. There's ways to do all that sort of stuff. But we're really trying to push that skill gap and focus on the timing and how you do things and what attacks you use and all those little situations to get into a good spot where it feels good, it's rewarding, you don't get super frustrated, because if in these cases, when you get ganked, it's clear that, okay, well, the other players were really, really good, and they didn't just mash because they managed to gank me perfectly.
Yeah.
And I had potentially a chance to escape. So there's a lot of that thing going on that we're really trying to push towards, where like we're pushing skill-based gameplay and not just, well, mash and you're going to be good to go.
Yeah.
But that's it for the testing grounds. It's a lot.